Guys, Key here from Kegland, and today we're talking about our new glycol flooded fonts. We've also got our new Ice Masters in the larger sizes. So previously we had the G40, now I've got the G60 and even another bigger and more powerful unit, the G80, which has come into stock as well. The other thing that we've got, which is fairly new, are these flooded drip trays. So typically, if we want to ice up the font, this is why a lot of people are installing these types of setups. The drips will come down the font onto the drip tray, and you want those drips to then get carried down into this part of the drip tray where the taps normally drip into, and that exits via a plumbed drain hole. So yeah, these new fonts really suit a commercial type of setup. A lot of bars and clubs or pubs are putting this type of stuff in behind the bar, which a lot of you guys at home never see. And this video, it may not suit a lot of domestic customers. Some domestic customers will probably find this type of installation a little bit too involved and complicated, but we do have a lot of commercial installers who are doing exactly this type of stuff. Now, a lot of you guys at home, if you're putting in a domestic keg system, most of you will choose a kegerator format where you keep the entire keg cold. So you put the keg inside the fridge, and that means the whole keg stays cold, which is good for shelf life and stuff like that, and good for unpasteurized beers like homebrew and that type of stuff. However, this type of setup, it's generally used in a lot of high turnover pubs and clubs where they can't have the behind bar space to chill all the kegs down, for instance, so they'll run all the beer through a chiller. Now, the chillers themselves, they don't necessarily have to go under the bar. That's how I've set up this sort of, stage bar. It's actually just some pallet racking and shelving, as you can see, that we're setting all this up into today. But basically, these can also be many, many meters away from where the bar service area is because they pump glycol out, which not only chills the font, but it chills the beer lines as well. So typically what you do is run the beer line and the glycol all together, and then you have insulation or lagging around all of that to keep all of them cold in transit. So yeah, this type of system, the kegs sit out warm. As the beer comes out of the keg, it'll enter into the glycol chiller, chill down in the coils, and then come out of those coils already cold and then feed up to these chilled fonts. So that's how it works. It's a bit different to having a kegerator, but certainly, if you're running a commercial business, this is probably, it's often one of the only ways to go. So let's get stuck into the installation of this setup. Now, one of the first things we have to deal with in this installation is the drip tray. Now, the drip tray comes like this, so it's completely flat, and we don't put any holes in here because we're not really sure how you want to configure this. Some people put 2 holes, some people put 1 hole in the middle, some people use a large diameter font and need a bigger hole, and some people use a smaller one. So naturally, we don't drill that out. So it comes in the box, and you need to drill a hole like I've done here. Look, I won't go into the drilling using a hole saw because it's pretty boring stuff. Basically, you need to make a hole right in the middle of the font where you want to put that, right in the middle of the drip tray, sorry, where you want to put that font. As I was saying before, this piece here is where, you'll get the drips on the font drip down into, and then they'll drip down here and then eventually go into this lower part of the drip tray where they exit by this hole. Now, we recently changed all our packaging so the fonts are easier to ship. So these come in this nice convenient box like that. And the other thing about the new boxes is you can cut out this piece of cardboard here from the box, and this becomes a drilling template. So what you can do is chop this out, put it on top of your bench top, and actually you can see where the mounting holes need to go, and you can drill them out. Look, I've already done this on this piece of MDF here. You'll probably be drilling through like stone or something probably more complicated than a sheet of MDF. But yeah, obviously you'll just have to source those drill bits and hole saws yourself. One thing I've found actually, although we've got a small drainage hole here and also a bigger one for the font, the way that these drip trays are set up, you can actually just chop out a much larger hole and give yourself a bit of extra clearance. But because we've got a laser cutter in the workshop, we just laser cut these holes out, so it was easy for us. The other thing you'll notice is underneath these drip trays, you've got a drainage hole. So yeah, we've got a little bit of Teflon tape on here, which we put in that thread. That's just a 1/2 inch thread. So you can use this drainage tube here, or we've got plenty of other 1/2 inch plumbing we've got on our website, which will also screw into that hole. So it's very, very flexible. You can pretty much find anything to take away the waste water and drips. The other thing we've got is these threaded rods. These are metric threaded, I think they're M6 going by memory, so they can screw into the base like that. Now previously on some of the older models, what we'd do is have these permanently welded into the plinth drip tray, but the problem with that is some benches were thicker and then you need to extend it, and some were shorter and you had to chop it off. So what we do is actually just have that threaded rod in there, and you can get different lengths of threaded rods separately. And then just screw them in like so. So I'm just going to pre-put them in like that, and they're all done. And then drop this onto the bench top like this, and hopefully my holes match up pretty well. There we go. And then the kit also comes with some big washers like this. So once again, you don't have to be super precise because we've given you a nice big washer. You can drill out those holes for those M6 threaded rods. And then on the underside, just thread them on like this. Okay, so now I've got that drip tray installed, it's time to install the font. Now, of course, you don't have to have a flooded font if you don't want, which means you won't have all that drips and ice on the font. It does mean your beer is going to be a little bit warmer because your beer lines are going to be, unrefrigerated in here, but for that extra expense, if you really want to have that great look of having a fully iced up font, then having a flooded font is a nice little add-on. The other thing I've done with this particular flooded font is I've actually put in the K-lock fittings. So the K-lock fittings enable you to basically pop out the taps like that. So as you can see, I'm using the Nuka taps, and then I've got the K-lock females on the font, which is generally how you have it set up. The beauty about doing this is I can then get the tap itself and chuck the whole tap into the dishwasher to wash it and stuff like that. Or if I'm in a busy service area and sometimes the bar is left unattended, maybe you've got those quiet nights of the week or something like that, you can actually remove the taps, and then that'll disable them, and essentially you won't have people from the public reaching over and pouring themselves the beer when the bar is left unattended. So, that's kind of a nice feature with the K-locks, I guess, and most commercial venues in Australia will use that type of setup. Now, once I've drilled the hole here to the right size of this font base, you'll then have to fit it up with these two parts here. So I'll just give you a quick look of how this works because it's a bit harder to see on the underside here. Basically, this type of assembly here will enable you to fit pretty much the font to any benchtop thickness. So that's why we've got a number of these various different lugs on the underside here. So the first thing you'll do is whack this into the bench, put on this washer here like that, and then depending on how thick the benchtop is, you'll move this coupling here up as far as you can like this, so it's hard up against the underside of the bench top there. And then once you've done that, you'll just lock it sideways into place like this. And then what you'll do is do up these Allen key bolts here. So these are an M6, so you'll need a 6mm Allen key to do them up. And then just do up these bolts here, and that'll fasten the font to the bench top and pull the drip tray and bench top hard together, so it's a nice sort of firm connection. The other thing you'll notice in the flooded fonts is, of course, we need glycol tubes for the flooding itself. So, because this is a 4-tap font, I've got 4 beer lines on the base, and obviously they connect up to the G40 chiller or G60 or G80, depending on which one you're using, and then the glycol in and out. Now, it is important to get the glycol in and out the right way around, which is why I've actually got them labeled here with this little tag. It says glycol in. So make sure that goes on the inlet side. The reason for that is the glycol in is important because as the glycol comes in, it actually floods from the bottom of the font up, purging all the air out of the font, and then once it's all full, it enters at the top and then flows back down into the glycol chiller. So if you have it the other way around, you'll probably have problems with an entire bubble getting stuck in the font, and then you'll notice it won't chill that well. So if that's the case, maybe have a close look at your plumbing, make sure it's the right way around. So as I was saying, get that washer up first and then get this coupling up further. Now I can pretty much go right to the top with this one because I've only got a 9mm thick piece of MDF, which this bench is made of. I do these Allen key bits finger tight, and then I'm going to finish it off with the 6mm Allen key like so, just making sure they're nice and firm, and that's going to squeeze the whole lot together really nice and tight. So as you can see, the plumbing is a little bit different between the G40 that I've got over here and the G60 and even the G80. On the G60 and G80 models like this, we've actually got a stainless steel 1/2-inch thread which is coming out of the top of the chiller like this. So this 1/2-inch thread can take a range of different fittings like our Duo-Tight 1/2-inch to 8mm. So I can just screw that on the top there, and that's a really easy way to plumb that one up. But I want to show you the G40. The G40 still uses these stainless steel tubes coming out the side like that. And typically in the past with the G40, what we'd do is get a elbow, like a Duo-Tight elbow like this, and essentially what we'd do is we'd score the stainless steel, so that way when we push the elbow in, the stainless steel teeth on this type of clip here would have that clip here, that stainless steel tooth there would have enough for the clip to grab onto, because we've put that score on there. But now we've made it even easier because we've got our new Duo-Tight fittings which are called screw lock. So the whole idea with the screw lock Duo-Tight fitting is we push the the elbow on there, or T-piece or straight joiner or whatever it is, and these are perfect for joining onto stainless steel, because all we do is push it on there, and instead of requiring that score mark, what we can do is twist this locking nut here, and that essentially will lock that O-ring and squeeze it down around that stainless steel tube. So even if you have a continuous straight, smooth bit of stainless steel, that friction of us squishing this sort of screw lock down is enough to compress around that stainless steel and make sure it's held in there really well. So on this installation, I'm going to use the screw lock fittings. You can see how easy it is. I basically start with this unscrewed like that, push that onto the stainless steel tube, and then screw up this fitting in normal right-hand thread, so just screw it in the clockwise direction, or anti-clockwise if you're facing this way, and then do that right up like that. And then what I'll do is I'll get this beer line output, and what I will do is basically push that in. So here's one I've done earlier. It's actually labeled on this one, so it says beer outlet tube is on the right side, beer inlet tube's on the left. In reality, actually, that doesn't matter. They can go left or right to left. Doesn't make that much difference. So that one just pushes straight in like that, and then she's done. So the plumbing is really, really straightforward. Once you've got all the beer lines plumbed up, so I've got these 4 beer lines will go into these 4 fittings here, and then also I'll have generally 4 different kegs, and those keg beer lines will be coming into this side here and coming into these fittings. So I'll have these 4 Duo-Tights here. So I have the 4 beer lines coming into here, going into that stainless cooling coil inside the chiller, and then as the beer comes out, it'll already be chilled and coming out of this one. Now, with any of these chillers, we basically have a medium-sized coil which is already inside the chiller itself. However, if you're in extremely hot conditions, like hot ambient conditions, and if you're wanting to chill the kegs more than 20 degrees below what they are at the moment. So let's say you've got a keg sitting there and it needs to drop by, say, 30 degrees. If you've got a really, really hot bar or something like that, for instance, the kegs are sitting at quite hot ambient temperatures, you might actually want to double the lines up. So that means with these 4 product lines, you'll end up going in here, out there, and then going out of the first output, and then going back into the second input, and then coming out the second time. So that means for 4 product lines, I would only get essentially 2 products going through this chiller. And that same principle applies for the G60 and the G80. So definitely for those people in Queensland or really hot places, I would consider getting a bigger chiller, especially if your kegs are sitting at fairly hot ambient temperatures. Lastly, with the glycol, it's pretty straightforward. I've got these 2 tubes on the font here, and they just connect up into this water inlet and water outlet. So it says water there, so you can use these just with water there, water inside the chillers if you want to, but generally most people want to run these at sub-zero temperatures, meaning to get down to sub-zero temperatures and making sure that the liquid inside doesn't freeze into an entire block of ice, you will need to buy some glycol so you can lower the freezing point. Okay, now once your beer lines and glycol lines are all plumbed up like this to your chiller, you'll then want to put some lagging or something over here, so you can wrap some foam over here or get some split foam tube and put it over this, and then tape it all up and make sure you're not getting any of this condensation just dripping all over your floor. The other thing you can consider if you're doing a really long run is then just buying the Python tube, where you basically have all of these tubes which come already inside a foam outer insulated casing, and that way you don't have to do really long lines yourself and cover them in foam insulation. Now, with respect to this drainage output, as I said before, there's a 1/2 inch thread under here, so I can undo this and put another 1/2 inch threaded device in here, or hard plumbing. But I find the easiest ways to hook up the drain is really just to get some flexible hose like this, like so, and then what I do is put a hose clamp over this, and then this tube here will go off to my closest drain. So I might just put it down the sink drain or S-bend of my underside of the sink. Now I've finished doing all the underbar installation, the last thing to do on the top of the bar is really just to put some silicone around the corner here and just seal the drip tray to the top of the bar top. So that's pretty much it. I think anyone can pretty much install one of these themselves. It's pretty straightforward. And if you want to have that awesome professional look at home, this is a really great luxury to have. Or if you're a really pumping bar or club who needs a lot of taps, then this is how to get it installed. If you want to hear about any other cool new stuff that's coming up, definitely subscribe now. Bottom right hand corner, hit subscribe. Or you want to join our Facebook Homebrew community group. We've got heaps of people there sharing tips and tricks on getting the most out of the gear. Anyway, that's it, and see you guys next time. Bye.